Spiritual platforms appeared all around, and the Panther Girl became a black smudge to everyone watching as she began jumping between all of them. Thankfully, Asterios had slightly better senses than the common Valkyria, and could still follow Miria's short lunges. He summoned his artifact sword from his storage ring and prepared himself to intercept Miria whenever she decided to finally strike, letting his body start slowly falling back towards the ground. They had clearly expected him to stay in the air right after he regained his bearing. But it didn't look like they would just let him fall that easily. A surge of hot and humid steam blasted into his back out of nowhere and pushed him up again, additionally limiting his vision. Miria wasted no time and lunged at him with both blades crossed and a wide, feral grin. Asterios unfolded one of his wings and let the rushing steam throw him into a spinning motion, barely avoiding Miria's cut. She didn't stop and continued her assault relentlessly, recreating the technique she had often used with his help, fully on her own this time, using just her pure abilities. She flew all around him in straight lines while trying to slice him with her short swords. He felt her blades graze his scales a few times, but it did barely anything to the tough plates. Even with his vision partially obstructed, he could still see her mana signature clearly through his draconic
on my
sight.
side.
Letting Miria feel like she had the upper hand for a few moments, he waited for a good opportunity and swung his sword into her blades with all his strength, throwing the Panther Girl off her path with a surprised yelp. With one annoying fly gone, he gathered a cluster of mana in his lungs and quickly spun around toward the ground, locking his eyes onto Selena, who was upholding the platforms. He opened his mouth wide and shot 5 orbs of fire at the Fox Lady instead of the usual spray of flame.
I foresaw this.
Selena's vertical pupils narrowed in shock at how fast the projectiles approached her, and she dropped the technique, preparing to dodge out of the way. It proved quite difficult as the 5 flaming spheres were meant to cut off all her paths of escape, considering that she had hidden herself partially behind a metal tower. She managed to avoid 3 of them, before the last 2 were inevitably going to slam into her. Raising a shielding layer in the front, she braced herself for impact. But something flashed before her eyes and Sylvia appeared out of thin air. The princess held her staff diagonally behind her back and slapped the projectiles away with her right hand.
Asterios isn't the only one who's a thought
Should have been more careful.
Substantially.
She showed a soft smile over her shoulder and rushed ahead with jets of flame propelling her forward. Sylvia hastily regrouped with Gina and they pressured Asterios together by engaging him in the air. The summoner lady had formed smaller sights in her hands to fight him in close quarters. With the princess by her side, they successfully captured Ast's attention. Making use of that brief opportunity, Selena focused her aura and connected deeper to her spiritual circuits. Cyan's spiritual armor covered her entire body and tails as the patterns over her skin grew to her shoulders.
Can do.
She condensed the greaves to fit her legs while retaining the slightly bigger size of her demonic gauntlets. Ready for the next step, she gathered lots of mana in her hands and crouched down,
Solid plan.
joining her palms together in the middle. Miria appeared in front of her in a quick lunge and jumped up. The Panther Girl landed with her feet on Selena's hands, and the Fox Lady released the accumulated energy to launch her friend into the air with a loud shout. Miria laughed almost maniacally as she started to spin around her own axis, heading straight into Asterios, who had been brought above her by the other 2. The person-sized drills soared towards him like a ballista bolt, and Asterios reacted barely in time to block it. The sheer force of the impact made him spin too, but he hastily recovered from the blow. Just as he did, he found Selena coming right at him from above with a spiritually enhanced punch, leaving a violent trail of blue energy behind him. He crossed his forearms right before she struck him and received the blow onto his guard.
Understood.
A powerful explosion shook the air as she shot down at a sharp angle, smashing through multiple metal obstacles on his way to the ground. The arena became quiet as the girls descended next to the deep pit created by his body. A moment later, Asterios slowly stepped out of it while cracking his neck.
It's a shame
With a wide
spilling
smile,
blood on such a
some
nice day.
bruises, and cuts visible on his skin and scales. It looks like I can't even compete with you relying only on my own draconic abilities. He chuckled deeply.
If you
I
say
guess
so.
this is where things get interesting. Chapter 16. Sizzling Defeat. Asterios raised his right arm to the sky, and his black arm blade unsheathed itself with an already slotted token. The girl's eyes shot to the gem, which started quickly becoming brighter, releasing a faint flash of deep darkness.
Let's roll!
Before they could react, a bolt of
where we
powerful
going
black lightning shot out of it and hit the top of the protective barrier.
I can handle that.
Then it cracked ominously and shot back towards the ground, splitting itself into numerous thick pillars that began roaming the battlefield seemingly aimlessly.
Francisco the Bold
Yet
has
it all
arrived!
looked like they had at least some aim as the scary columns moved
Stronger the
toward
heart,
everyone
the
else
sharper the blade.
except Asterios. The girls scattered instantly, their goal clear. He had to keep feeding the runic chip mana for the spell to traverse the battlefield and the dark lightning to chase after them. But it was almost impossible to approach Asterios when multiple threatening pillars constantly crossed their paths. Selena, Tina, and Sylvia had made it a little easier thanks to their ability to fly. But Miria was forced to move around the battleground on foot, no matter how strengthened by her bloodline she was. She still
Not
could
everyone
jump
can be
over
forgiven.
many obstacles or even use them as footholds. But the fact that she had to expend a lot more effort to avoid the rays of death than her teammates was indisputable. Their only worry was the magic, as barely anything else restricted their movements in the air. Yet even with that, none of them could find a good opportunity to approach or attack Asterios. Most of Sylvia's techniques required at least a little bit of build-up, so she focused fully on using her fire to propel herself around. Selena tried to invoke a few of her spiritual techniques, but they were often wasted on repelling the pillars instead. Tina planned to
When
send
your heart
Hydra
starts
out, but
racing,
decided
slow
against
down
it
and take
in
a
the end,
moment.
as he was her best safety measure in case things went wrong.
Coming
Only
right up!
Miria moved closer bit by bit. As she ran around the arena, always picking her turns in a way
got
to
it,
reduce
Captain.
the distance between her and her beloved master. Unfortunately, the moment she
You
found
got
herself in a straight alley with Asterios still standing in front of the crater his fall had created, she realized that she
Right.
was too late. While they had been running around, he finished his preparations. The spell was nothing more than a distraction,
Righto.
allowing him to feed his artifact sword more mana mixed with Sylvia's energy. With enough time on his hands, he had managed to condense the size
Sure
of the
thing,
bi-colored
Cap.
flaming blade to that slightly bigger than a common longsword. His head snapped
You can do
towards
this.
Miria, and she shivered and smiled. Her instincts screamed at her to dodge, as all the fur on her body stood up, and Miria knew better than to doubt. As she threw herself to the side, a merciless arc of sharpened flames passed through her previous location,
Should have been more careful.
slicing through all the metal structures on her sides of the alley she had stood in a moment ago. She didn't stop after dodging and
As long
continued
as
to
Sarah's
run,
safe, this
waiting
whole
for another
world can
opportunity,
rot.
not giving up. Aware of what the other girls were thinking about and receiving a few flashes of Acet's movements through their eyes, she fully accepted her role
Light
as the
burns the
unseen
brightest in the
assassin
dark.
and remained out of her master's vision,
Candy.
doing her best to fool his senses too. In the meanwhile, the lightning
Destiny
pillars
stars.
disappeared since Asterios had no more use for them. The crystal token was launched out of the niche in the blade with a loud whiz, and he immediately inserted another one in its place. Sylvia wanted to delay him at least a little, and sent forth a quick projectile in the form of 4 small coiling serpents with dragon-like features.
Luck
He
is on my
regarded them
side.
with a lazy glance, which caused the fire to diminish before reaching him. His crimson eyes shimmered fiercely. The princess clicked her
Tomorrow's a
tongue
new
and prepared to escape his counterattack. But before he aimed the spell slinger at her, a thick wall of swirling water rose around
may
him
not be
and locked
smart, but
Asterios
I know
inside
how.
a blue dome. He chuckled to himself and swung the artifact sword to his right, noticing Tina's position before his vision had been taken away. His eyes then widened in
Stronger than-
surprise as the flaming arc he had sent out passed through the water easily and suddenly
Fortune
returned right
favors the
after,
prepared.
heading back to him. Evading it at first, he used his authority over fire to destroy it before it repeated that action. Not wasting any more time without knowing what was happening outside, he sank the flaming artifact sword into the metal floor
Go ahead,
and released
open
the
your mouth.
condensed energy
I'll put an
currently
arrow
covering
in it.
its blade.
I'll see it
Immense heat
through.
and fire burst out in waves and instantly evaporated the water. The complex spiritual barrier of the same shape appeared before him, and he smirked at the ingenuity of his mate's
If
cooperation.
your blood runs hot,
Tina was
keep your
already
head
preparing
cool.
another technique after her current one had been dispelled, making use of the brief moment he was still locked down. Asterios quickly considered his options amongst the tokens he could use. There were a few that could easily deal with his current predicament, but he didn't feel like wasting them on simple training. They could be crucial during the real battles, and they were powerful enough to guarantee the runic chips breaking into pieces after just one use. Therefore, he replaced the previously inserted token with something else and hid the arm blade for now, grabbing the enhanced artifact sword with both hands. He decided to try something else. With the knowledge of the fact that Selena could use this weapon too, he was curious if he could infuse it with something else than his or Sylvia's energy. And his guess proved to be correct, as the amber crimson sword of pure condensed flames received a deep cyan strip of spiritual reinforcement over its blunt edge. The blade glowed in 3 beautiful colors now, and surely the new addition wasn't just a visual change. With a small grin, Asterios hastily thrust his sword right into Selena's barrier. It stopped his weapon completely at first, releasing powerful energy from the point of impact, but it passed through as he put more effort into it. The owner of the spiritual dome was amazed to see something pierce the shield this easily, but she turned completely flabbergasted when Asterios swung his blade to the side and cleaved right through the entire barrier like it was made of paper.
The news of Lord
Very
Abelard's
familiar
surrender will
energy.
spread quickly.
Unfortunately for him,
Alas,
there
we
was
have a
no
new
time to go
problem.
after Selena, as an immense wave
You
of
mean
a ceiling-high
Ballastar.
tsunami
They say his
headed
demeanor has
right
completely
towards him
changed,
the very second he had freed
particularly in
himself.
battle.
The
Rumor
deafening
has it
roar
his
of
troops
the
have been
dark
committing
violet
atrocities
water
in the regions
shook
they've
the entire
occupied.
arena as it swallowed
that's
obstacle
true,
after obstacle,
support for the Benarian
discriminating
army will
against
wither
nothing on
quickly,
its path
even
of
if we
destruction.
take Lyriar.
Then an intricate formation of orange color
I don't believe
flashed
those
underneath his
rumors,
feet,
but
and amber
we can't just
chains
ignore this.
surged out of them,
Let's move ahead.
tying his legs
Fast.
and waist
If we're
down.
pressed for time,
He made
there
a
may
quick
be a way
swing,
to advance our
but even his
timetable with
artifact
respect
sword
to
bounced
Lyriar.
off the fiery restraints while releasing pretty
By
sparks
moving
into
our
the air.
camp here,
It definitely
That's
was
right
possible
between
to get rid of
Alliant
them
and
with a
Pamel.
stronger attack, but he didn't exactly have
Wouldn't
time
that put
for
us
that.
right in the middle of
It looked like
enemy
the girls
lines?
took him very
They could cut us
seriously
off on
after he
both
had come
sides.
out of the metal
if
pit.
they were thinking clearly,
Sending a
yes.
bunch of his mana
But
into the
after Lord
spell
Abelard's
he
surrender,
activated the stored
I'm not
spell
certain.
and dragged
On
his
the
extended
contrary,
hand from left to
I think
right.
it likely the enemy
Multiple
forces are
red
feeling
spheres
pressured
the
and
size of a person
demoralized.
formed alongside
Not to
the line
mention their
he made,
leaders.
emanating
The
powerful,
Lords of Alliant
sizzling
and
heat
Pamel
which made
don't
the
know
air
where
around
we'll
them
hit
shimmer.
next.
He took a lowered stance, brought his
Sounds
sword
like
to
a
the
plan.
right, and fed it even more of his and
Everyone,
Sylvia's
prepare to
mixed
move.
mana. The flames erupted from the blade, becoming almost unstable, and Asterios fought to hold them down. Moments before the giant wall of water smashed into the floating orbs, he swung
Just
his
how
sword
long
with a
do we
shout,
have to wait here?
and an arena-wide flaming
2
crescent
days.
shot ahead.
If my
The
predictions
rushing
are
energy
correct,
spliced into
we
the
should see
crimson
movement by
spheres,
then.
causing them to detonate instantly.
2
The
days.
hellfire mines of devastation
should savor it.
exploded with merciless flames.
This may be the last time we get to rest for a
multiple times in
while.
diameter, just as the
Well,
tsunami came
look
in
on the bright
contact
side.
with them. An unstoppable
things don't go our
wall
way in
of
Lyriar,
water met an
we'll be
immovable
resting for
wall
good.
of fire, and only a limited amount of the rushing liquid made it through. But the downside of that was the fact that the battleground became filled with thick steam,
Any
reaching
other
the
changes?
very top of the barrier in the
No
blink
troop
of an
movements
eye.
in Lindber,
It was
Alliant,
so
or
dense that
Pamel.
Asterios could
And
barely
the
see
scouts
a
say they
step
brought
ahead of him.
minimal escort.
And it wasn't just any
Good.
random steam. Even his draconic sight had trouble seeing through it, as it
Eden,
appeared as an azure
the Lords have
smoke
arrived.
to him from being filled with
Bring them
mana
to
the
me.
rim. He smiled to himself. It was seriously scary how smart Tina was. She perfectly knew how to fight against him, and worked hard to utilize
Presenting
the
the
strengths
Lords
of
of
all the other
Alliant,
girls to bring her
Lindber,
plan to
and
life,
Pamel.
while inconveniencing him as
I
much
am
as
Eden,
possible.
of the Benarian army.
She was no short
Please
of
accept my
achievements,
apologies for meeting in
even if
such
her
crude
preferred
quarters.
role was the first line of offense.
Leon, bring our guests something to drink.
An intense sense of
Don't
danger hit
bother.
him, and Asterios barely tilted his
We're on the
body to
mood
avoid a
for
sword
tea and
coming
smoke.
right at his head. A dark silhouette flashed past him and disappeared
just
back
get to
into
the
the
point,
disorienting mist. He looked around in awe.
As you
The
wish.
attacker hadn't made
The
even a
Empire
single
is broken.
sound while approaching
It's
him.
time for change.
They could also easily
All
pinpoint his
Benaria wants
location,
from you
while
is
he
a
had
peaceful
hard time
surrender.
finding his bearings
Stand
inside
aside.
the steam.
Let us end this war
Glancing
and make
down,
things
he
right again.
realized the reason and chuckled.
Do that, and I
His
swear in
flaming
King
artifact
Abramo's
blade
name,
emitted a
no
combination
harm
of
will
red,
come to your
orange,
families
and
or your
blue
property.
light. There was no doubt that it acted like a beacon.
We have our
over
own
a stormy
qualms with
sea.
the Empire.
Tina must have come up with this plan seconds after seeing him condense the
Nerio
flames
has
in
our
the sword.
support.
He didn't get to ponder too long
Thank you.
over it as the mysterious attacker swung at him once more, with Asterios evading the slash at the last moment again. There were no sound cues this time either, and another blow came at him just 2 seconds later, right from the
Tomorrow
front,
we will
perhaps
arrive at
aiming to
Ferta
surprise
Gate,
him.
otherwise known as the
On the
Shield of the
contrary, he
Empire.
managed to parry it, and the fraction of a second that his slightly glowing blade illuminated
remind
his
me.
opponent before
From
they
there,
jumped away
straight
was
on to
enough
the
for him to
capital.
recognize them.
Seems
was
you have
Miriam.
something on your mind.
And she
Devising
intensified
some
her
clever
attempts
gambit to
right
get us
away,
through Ferta, I
while
take
doing
it?
his best to dodge her
Nope,
ferocious slashes.
just taking in the
He
scenery.
wondered why none of the
It's
other
pretty.
girls worked with her at taking him down.
You know, you have
Then he
an
quickly
odd
realized
strength
that
about
Miriam was the
you,
perfect person for the
even
job,
when you play the
without a
fool.
single weakness.
It's reassuring somehow.
Sylvia's fire magic would be as easily telegraphed as his sword. Selena's
now.
powerful martial arts
Was the
and
Icy
spiritual
Inquisitor
techniques
going
could
soft on you?
disturb this gene.
I always have
Tina
been.
definitely kept feeding
Just stopped
the mist
hiding
her
it when I
mana,
lost my
so
job.
it didn't dissipate into nothingness. They could only wait and
You're
rely
right.
on their feline friend.
It is a beautiful view.
Curious about how she would do without a source of light
I
to
don't feel
guide her,
quite so uneasy
Asterios
anymore.
released the mana from the artifact sword and returned to its dormant
You know,
state.
you don't have to hide your
His surroundings
feelings from
quickly
me,
grew
right?
darker. He
Not
kept
that I'm
looking
accusing
around
you
for
of
a hole in
anything.
the mana-infused
Just
mist
saying.
with all his
We're
other
getting close to the
senses
capital
aligned.
now.
But even
I
without the
imagine that
glow,
must be
Miria's
strange for
dual
you.
blade still came for his neck.
A
She
little.
passed him like wind, silent and
Part of me
deadly.
hoped that by the time we got here,
If he wasn't
I'd
able
be
to
too
notice her
busy to
enter
reflect
his
on it.
close vicinity thanks to sensing the
I
presence of her
suppose that was
mana,
foolish of
he
me.
would be long dead
I
or
can't
at
stop
least
thinking about
seriously
him.
injured. He was really
Brother.
curious how she
I don't
was
know
able
what
to
the next
track
few
him
days hold,
while he intentionally
but I know one
moved as
thing.
silently as he could.
I'll be right there
Unfortunately,
beside you the whole
They
way.
couldn't keep playing this game of cat and mouse forever.
Thank you.
They weren't the only ones unable to see
When
a
all
thing
this is
the system
over,
Tina had created.
What do you think you'll
The
do
audience
next?
must be wondering what was
I'm
happening
not sure.
inside too, and with their gold
To be
beam
honest, I'm still
display
figuring
their
that
power
out.
to the spectators. As clever
Cap!
and amazing as
Cap!
the current situation was, it had the opposite effect.
There's a messenger
So
from
Asterios
Lyria!
dodged a few more attacks while fishing out another runic chip from his spatial storage and aimed for a good moment to activate it. After about 15 seconds, he was pretty sure that he could more or less predict
You're
Miriam's
saying we should
pattern,
trick the
and she kept
messenger.
increasing the pace more and more. Right
Trying
after
to
she
take
struck
Ferta
him the
directly would
next
be
time,
far too
he
costly.
counted to 3, and the gem
I think
glowed
it best to
purple.
find another
A
way.
powerful force began
If
sucking
he's an
everything
envoy
toward
from
the
Prime
location
Minister
of his
Morin,
spellslinger,
he'll likely be
and a
quick on his
shouting
feet.
yelp reached
Send me in
Asterios.
there with a
The
bottle of
suction was
booze.
strong enough to pull
I'll
even
sort him
Miriam,
out.
and he positioned himself toward the source
Not
of the
gonna happen.
surprised gasp.
It would be
Soon
nice to
enough,
go
the
in there
Panther
with more
Girl's
than
body
just
flew
words,
at him
though.
without control,
We
and he
need some
swung
kind
his
of
sword at her.
lever.
Even in that state, Miria succeeded in blocking his attack, taking it onto
I
her
just
blade.
heard about the messenger.
The impact
That
caused her to
bastard
spin
Morin trying
around,
to scare
and
us?
she made the
Let me at the
perfect
little
move to
worm.
try to kick Asterios right in the face. He caught her ankle
You know
before her
what?
foot slammed into his
That's not a
nose
bad
and threw
idea.
Miria down on the ground. She grunted and hastily rolled
Wait,
away, keeping
seriously?
herself low on the floor as his spell was still sucking everything in. A moment later, their surroundings became clear as the entirety of the thick fog was removed from the battlefield.
You're
Selena
younger
had
than I
been
thought.
waiting for this moment and lunged at him,
Young,
engaging
dumb, and
Asterios
full of
in close
passionate
combat,
zeal.
preventing him from slotting a
I
new
might even
token
just
in
walk
place
into the
of
capital
one that had
tonight.
just been
Help
ejected
myself
from
to
his
the Emperor's
spell
head.
slot. Miria
On
jumped
the
up
other
from the
hand,
floor too, and
us
they
hot-headed
began
young
a
mercenaries
deadly
also
dance
have
together.
our ambitions.
The fight soon reached the level of his battle
Exactly
with the
what are
Demon
you
King,
implying?
as Selena pulled
I think
no
you know
punches
perfectly
and
well.
obliterated bits
Why
of the
don't we skip the
environment
games?
and the ground with her blows.
Prime Minister
Miria's
Morin is
sharpened
prepared to make
and
you an
extended
offer.
blades left numerous
If you
marks
surrender
on
in
the
good
metal
faith
too,
now,
as
you
she
will be made
combined
High
her
Commander
attacks
of
with
the
her
Imperial
Volpine
Army.
partner. The arena shook
Surrender!
constantly
Who the hell
as
do
they
you think
jumped
you
around
are?
the
You
entire
can go
field.
back and tell your boss.
When even
Francisco,
Tina joined in the fray
you're
with
being
hatred
rude to our guests.
shaped into her favorite science,
What?
it became obvious that they were buying time
Excuse
for
my
Sylvia to
muscle.
prepare something big.
Please, continue.
Asterios could barely repel the trio's
Continue.
attacks while trying to
You're being
pinpoint the
offered all
princess's
the armies of the
location.
Empire.
He knew
And
that she
you ask
was
for
already
more?
aware that massive techniques weren't the
High
best choice
Commander
against him.
Eden.
So she might be working on something truly
I don't
dangerous.
know.
Sylvia
We've
was the
already
person to
conquered
repeat her
Allianz,
past mistakes.
Limber, Pameld,
Then,
Fjorzen.
out of nowhere,
Tell you
five
what,
magical
throw
circles
those in for
appeared on
me,
the ground,
we've got a
forming
deal.
a pentagonal shape.
Brother,
A
what
bad
are you
feeling
saying?
overcame Asterios the very moment he
What do
laid
you
his
think?
eyes on the intricate
I'm
pattern.
saying, let's retire in
Not
luxury.
even a second later, five ethereal
can't be
pillars
serious.
arose from the marked
Aren't you
spots
sick of
and
living
glowed
from one
brightly
fight to
with
the
ominous
next?
sigils and
Don't you want
patterns.
something to
And
show
immense
for it?
pressure descended
It's not like
on
the
the center
Phoenician.
of the formation,
believe what
where
I'm
Asterios
hearing.
was located, weighing on him like a mighty
wait.
mountain that
I
had just
see
been
what you're
dropped
doing.
onto his back.
You're afraid I'm gonna
The
cut you
girls
out.
jumped away
Is that
right
it?
before the technique had
Well, don't
activated,
you worry,
getting out of
brother.
its range in
I'll
time.
make sure there's a castle
It
with
had
your
clearly
name
been
on
laid
it.
down much earlier, most likely when the mist
this
had
is
still been
wrong.
up,
This is
and all their
betrayal.
recent efforts meant only to lure Asterios
You better watch
into
who
the
you're
correct
calling a
location.
traitor.
Well, if
As
this is
the
a
almost
betrayal, then
unbearable
what is?
spiritual pressure
Even on
forced
days
him
when
to
we were
one
poor and
knee,
hungry,
he
we still
realized
had
that
our
he had been
armor.
mistaken about Sylvia's approach. He
All right,
shuffled
that's
blindly
enough.
as his
Get
eyes
him out of
spotted
here.
an insanely quickly heating up spot in the
I
thick
said
metal
seize him.
wall right in front of him. It melted a moment later, and a
Matter of
literal
fact,
death ray
take him out
shot
back
at
and kill
at
him.
an unbelievable
That's an
speed,
order.
crashing right into Ast's body.
Eden!
Loud
Let's go.
humming and sizzling noise filled the arena as Sylvia kept feeding energy into the same spell she had used
Sorry
long
about
ago on the
that.
demon conqueror.
Business
This
matter.
time purely
You
on
know
her
it.
own, without Ast's external help.
A starved hound
The
always
pillar
bites
of
its
relentless
master
heat and
first.
fire penetrated everything
Prime Minister
else in
Morin
its
would have
path
loved to
and
see
hit the
that.
protective
He
barrier
loathes
at the
those who
far
don't
end
know
of
their
the
proper
battleground.
place.
The golden shield turned
So,
orange, then
do we
light
have an
red, and
agreement?
even bordered on a brown shade around the point of impact.
Tomorrow
People sitting
morning,
in that
we will
area
proceed to
became
Fairton
worried,
Gate.
as they had never
From
seen
there, I
anything
will escort you to
like that.
Lyria.
The irregular flickering
that your
and flashing
affairs are in order
conveyed
this
under how much strain
The Prime Minister
barrier
can
truly
tolerate
was.
many things.
Thankfully,
Tardiness
before
isn't
anything
one of them.
serious happened, Sylvia withdrew her spell, and the bright death ray dissipated into nothingness, leaving a bubbling, melted corridor behind.
You ought to
Alongside
join
a
the
shimmering
Mummies
path
trick,
of heated
kid.
air.
That was some fine
Maria,
acting.
Selena, and Tina stepped closer toward
think
the
he
hole
bought
through
it.
which Asterios had been thrown back.
Just
after
what
taking
is
the
going
laser
on
head
here?
on.
Did that get him?
The
You mean all that was just for
peering
show?
into the crater.
Oh, God, you can't say
A little
things
warning
like that.
might have been
Tina
nice.
shivered on the spot.
You know, you guys aren't good
A
at
deep echoing
masquerades.
chuckle
If I
traveled
told you,
throughout the
it
arena.
wouldn't have worked.
With a slow flap of
All
his
right,
draconic
bring
wings,
Francisco back in
Asterios flew
here.
up into the
I owe him a
sky
pardon.
at the far edge of the
And a
Colosseum.
hug.
Gray smoke kept rising from his entire body, now covered in even more dark crimson scales, which shimmered ominously. His pants and shoes had disappeared or had been obliterated by
massive.
Sylvia's attack.
May
leaving
I
him
present
just in his
Fairton
underwear.
Gate,
He had
the mighty
managed to hide
shield
his
against
spellslinger
all who
away
oppose
before
the
it got
Allies.
destroyed, fortunately.
Prior to the unification, the misguided royal houses of the Old Kingdoms banded together to form a great army.
Unfortunately for you, it
This is
seems
where their
to be
fall
quite
ended.
beneficial. Let me
I
show
can see
you
why.
what real heat
I'll
is.
enter first and relay the
Tiny
situation.
crimson flames flickered all
After
around
the gate
his
opens,
body,
you may follow.
and the lines connecting his scales together, and suddenly burst out. Asterios spread his wings and arms wide,
Francisco.
embracing the dark scarlet fire that quickly swallowed him whole. The
Can I
girls
stop
watched in
hiding now?
astonishment as the
Yeah,
flames
you're
expanded
up.
and began
If
taking
this is
shape.
another prank, you and me are gonna have a
Tina
talk about
fluttered
our
under her
friendship.
breath as her eyes went wide.
The gate's
After a
opening!
few seconds, they all knew exactly
Put
what
our
that
fastest
shape
troops
was.
up front.
Perhaps not as big as the one
Break
they had
through
met in
before
the
it closes.
past. The fire that had surrounded Ast's figure took the form of a true dragon,
The time
made
is
of pure
now!
crimson
Charge!
flames. Its size was comparable to that of an adult wyvern, which was still incredibly impressive. The flaming dragon directed its sharp head toward them and let out a booming roar. The girls were sure that Asterios would attack them right away, but he flapped his wings and flew forward instead. They watched him gain speed and circle the entire arena right under the top of the barrier. After making 3 test laps, he started spinning around his own axis and became even faster.
Sir,
In
they're
just a few
preparing to
moments, the
charge!
crimson fire
The
began
feigned
leaving a
surrender.
visible trail
How
behind his
petty
draconic
and
avatar.
futile. This
Ast's
for
speed soon reached the level where a fiery ring hung in the
gates.
air, with
We had
tongues
to
of
let the
intense
envoy
fire
in.
reaching out
The
past
gates are
his
wide
head.
open.
But that was just the beginning.
What?
The temperature started to spike sharply.
Sounds like we started
as the
quite the
flaming
commotion.
circle glowed brighter and
All right,
brighter.
everyone. There's
The
our
girls gathered
invitation.
up and hid behind Selena's and Tina's joint barriers.
We've got
combat
one
the
shot
heat,
at this,
which
so
reached
don't
the
waste
point
it.
of slowly
Let's
melting
rush
the metal
those gates.
structures littering the battleground. As the
Set it
shining ring of
aflame.
pure flames became bright enough to
We
bask
must
the
play
entire
for time.
Colosseum in
Set
a
fire
scarlet
to their
shade,
path now.
things began turning into liquid in the
Yes,
blink of an
sir.
eye. Even behind their barriers, the girls were having a hard time breathing. The air was just too unbearable.
Damn it.
No matter how
we
much
ever
effort
catch a
Tina
break?
put into chilling it down, with
In the
the help of
past,
her familiars,
I've seen records
their
of
barriers
Phantom's garrison
weakened with
forces
every
conducting
second,
counter raids.
and they would
Can't have
inevitably end
climbed
up in a
down.
sea of melted
There
metal
must be a sally port
if
somewhere.
they did nothing.
Right.
Unable to see themselves
the
coming
wall,
out of their current
more holes
predicament
it's got.
victoriously, or even leaving the still somewhat
Listen up!
sufferable
If a
bubble
little
of their
fire was
creation,
enough to stop
they
us,
decided
we
to
wouldn't
take the
even be
only
here.
possible
Front gate,
course of action.
side door, whatever
We
it takes.
surrender.
One
Tina
way or
announced as
another.
loud as she could, straining her lungs to speak the word. In an instant, the temperature stopped rising and began gradually dropping. They watched the arena-wide ring of flames slowly fade away as Asterios
It's up to
reduced the
me.
speed of his flight and ceased spinning around his own axis. After reaching a more or less normal speed, he glided toward them, and the flaming dragon landed in front of their joint barriers. The draconic flame quivered, and the spiritual avatar dissipated, revealing Asterios still in the same state of undress, and with the abundance
Understood.
of crimson scales covering his skin still present. He resummoned his spellslinger, slotted a white chip into the hole, and
Loud and
cast a
clear.
chilling spell that reduced the temperature to an even more bearable level, with waves of silvery mist. Tina and Selena dropped the barriers
People who run their
and
mouths
exhaled
die
with relief.
first.
Miria giggled in excitement and lunged at him while dropping her blades.
Awesome! Can I ride that, Master?
He chuckled as he caught her and let them spin around. The other girls
Think deeply.
exchanged glances
Act
and
quickly.
smiled softly at each other while shaking their heads.
Let's roll.
There was just no
where are we
way
going
for
again?
Miria to ever change.
Coming right up.
Chapter 17. The Mobilization. Shortly after Myriad jumped into Ast's arms,
Come.
an explosion of
I will
cheers
show you
rolled through the
oblivion.
entire arena. They looked around at the rows of audience members who kept shouting and applauding
Righto.
their battle. The number of winged ladies present in the Colosseum was much greater than Asterios remembered from before the fight. It looked like
Let's get it
more
done.
spectators had trickled in during the battle. He expected a slightly more silent and perhaps
You got it!
uncomfortable celebration, considering that complete outsiders dominated the tournament. But it didn't look like everyone shared the same beliefs as the plotters who had attempted to sabotage
Faith will
them.
never betray me.
Just as Bryn had assured them many times, Valkyrius of Tyr truly valued strength and knew how to enjoy a good struggle. What they had shown must have been enough
They're
to
inside.
satisfy their
We can't
craving
close
for
them.
action. Slowly coming to a stop,
Get hold
halting the
of
spins
yourselves.
Miria had
Drive
thrown
them
them
out.
into, Asterios caressed her ears as she lovingly rubbed her face into his cheek.
Life and death
He
are
could
but a
feel how
cycle.
excited and thrilled she was
goes.
by the last bit of his performance. Chuckling softly, he brought her face
Right.
in front of his. I'm afraid that flying on top of that thing might prove difficult. He smirked at her, bringing a cute pout to Miria's lips.
No matter how careful you
That
are,
form is
all
purely
it takes is
spiritual.
one mistake.
Or perhaps it's more accurate to say
Light burns
that it's
the
a
brightest
flaming
in the
shape
dark.
made of my fire. You would at least get badly
Cisco
burned if
the
you didn't
Bold
go
has
through it.
arrived!
Ooh, I thought I would finally get to ride a
Turn the tide of
dragon.
battle.
She
Turn your
dropped
life
her
around.
gaze alongside her rounded ears. Asterios brought her face back up and left a peck on her forehead. I'm sure we will figure that out soon. Just be patient
You
a little
say
longer.
so.
She smiled at him sweetly and nodded.
Don't worry, Master. I will wait as long as it takes. Please, don't push yourself too hard, okay?
I
Cannot
promise.
escape the wheels
He
of
nodded back at
fate.
her and turned to Sylvia. Were you
No
not afraid
sweat.
that this last attack would literally turn me into dust? The princess showed a tiny smile.
I had confidence in your resistance to fire. Though it seems like I underestimated you
I
again.
foresaw
He
this.
barely did anything to you.
It certainly hurt like hell. Asterios chuckled wryly. My scales might have absorbed most of his scorching energy, but it still felt like my insides were to
Solid
boil.
plan.
I'd rather not stand in front of it ever again. Especially if you manage to get Dex.
I might need a durable sparring partner to test that out, though. I don't think there's anyone better suited for that role than you. A true dragon.
He shook his head.
Should have been more careful.
Tina,
Yeah?
being suddenly addressed out of nowhere, surprised the blue-haired girl greatly.
Coming right
You
up!
were incredible. and the unexpected compliment forced her to flush on her nose she cried, and she fidgeted under Ast's gaze. He stared right at her, as she could feel the sincerity in both his words and his thoughts, which made her even more embarrassed.
Where did that even come from?
She tried her
People who
best
run
to
their
look up
mouths
at him
die
a little
first.
shyly. From how amazing you led everyone. Your tactics and quick
The
thinking were
destination
just
doesn't
something
matter.
else.
It's the people
He
you're
stepped
with.
closer to her after Miri had said three. Tina's cheeks grew even bigger as he arrived before her. Of course
Mind
not.
the bow.
I'm not that kind of person, am I? They smiled at each other. I might not know you as well as you know me, but it was easy to figure
Think
out who
deeply,
would take the lead
act
of the
quickly.
team with me absent. I'm really glad that you got everyone to participate without a problem.
Here we go.
You girls truly felt like a veteran party with years of experience fighting together. You didn't give me a moment to breathe and countered almost everything I did.
Guess this was
Thinking the
one
most suitable
moment.
strategies and techniques against me, I was amazed.
Master's right. Your instructions are super clear and felt almost like Master's.
Iria beamed at her from behind the stereos.
I agree.
Sylvia nodded respectfully.
I wasn't sure if I would have been much use considering that Asterios easily counters my fire, but I was happy to listen to your brilliant ideas. The mist formation was impressive. I'm sure that I wouldn't be able to predict my lord's actions this accurately ever.
Selena smirked
You
behind
got
her
it.
slender hand. Speaking of which, how did you pinpoint my location inside that sea of steam area? Asterios glanced at the Panther Girl.
At first, it was mostly thanks to your sword. But then I just sharpened my hearing to your scorching hot mana to the level allowing me to listen to your heartbeat.
She grinned at him. And how did you get that silent?
I just took off my boot.
She giggled and gestured down
If your blood
with her
runs
eyes,
hot,
revealing
keep
to
your head.
Asterios that she really was barefooted at the moment. Seriously. He shook his head with a wry smile. What kind of a monster will you become after fully mastering your bloodline?
That's going to be the question we should be asking you instead.
Gray's voice reached their ears as their demon friend
Let's get it
arrived
done.
on the battlefield.
You've almost ruined this entire structure right now. I failed to imagine your power a year from now.
Destiny
No, a
stars.
month even. But if you're always going to end up like this after letting it out,
I
I
will
don't think
bring
I'm going to
justice
enjoy
to
it
this
very
land.
much.
She licked her lips while running her gaze over Ast's slightly singed body, still at full display. Realizing his state, he withdrew his draconic features and resummoned his spiritual apparel, much to Gray's dissatisfaction.
When your heart
He
starts
returned
racing,
his eyes
slow
to
down
Tina
and
and
take a
pulled the
moment.
blue-haired lady into a delicate kiss after their gaze.
Go ahead. Open your
I'll
mouth.
take this as
I'll
a
put an
reward for
arrow
doing
in it.
well.
She chuckled quietly.
It wasn't easy coming up with ways to take you down when you fought back this hard. By the way, why did your clothes
All it
disappear?
takes is one
I will
shot.
feel bad if you don't ask for anything else, so let me know if there's something you want later. He smiled at her warmly. As for the clothes, it looks
I may
like
not
whatever
be
I have
smart,
pulled
but I
right
know
there in the
how
end
to earn.
is a little over what I can comfortably handle. My hold on the spiritual materialization was released halfway at first, and then almost fully when I tried to block the attack. I hope I didn't show you anything unsightly.
Not at all.
She shook her
It's up
head
to
with
me.
a bashful smile.
It was nice. Your scales, that is.
Asterios chuckled after seeing her blush even more and let go of Tina not to embarrass her too much. She stayed by his side and everyone exchanged smiles. They felt good about their performance, and both he and the girls were proud of themselves and
Not
each other.
everyone.
Something of someone's wings in their close vicinity caught their attention, and they turned their faces toward the source. Bryn landed next to them with grace and dignity. She nodded at them politely, but they could see how hard she held herself back from showing a dazzling smile on her lips.
Congratulations. I'm at a loss for words to
This
describe the
moves me.
battle. I knew it would be something breathtaking, but I didn't expect the crowd to be ensnared by it so much. The audience still hadn't quieted down since the moment the fight ended.
Thank you. Asterios made a small bow, and the girls followed.
The
I hope it
stronger
was
the
enough
heart,
to
the
help your
sharper the
plans.
blade.
We shall see about that in a moment.
Bryn finally surrendered her lips to a faint smile.
For now, please join me on the dais as I announce the results and something else.
Right as she finished speaking, the ground shook and the arena's floor started shuffling. It released much louder metallic noises during the movements due to the half-melted state of many tiles and entire sectors of the geometrical mesh. A wide circular platform appeared next
It's a
to them,
shame,
and
spilling
Bryn
blood on
gestured at
such a nice
everyone
day.
to join her on top of it. As it began descending further up, two more winged women flew towards it and landed
Loud
by
and
her
clear.
side. Asterios and the girls quickly recognized Skoll and Krev, the manager of the arena and its most feared
I will
challenger,
show you
until
oblivion.
now at least. They watched in awe as the pillar rose up high enough to match the highest rows in the audience and stopped. A small compartment opened on the floor, and a metal bar extended out of it, reaching Bryn's face. A rectangular device was attached to its top end, and Asterios
see it
was pretty
through.
sure that it was another voice-enhancing artifact, just like the one they had seen during Tina's graduation. Bryn took a deep breath and grabbed the metal pole.
People of Tyr, and guests from the other arcs,
She began with a mighty tone.
as you have just witnessed
As long
during
as
the
Sarah's
last
safe,
grand
this whole
match,
world
the
can
Power
rot.
Division tournament of the War Games has finally concluded.
A loud cheer answered her introduction, and Bryn waited a short moment for her sisters in arms to calm down.
It might be something unprecedented and never before seen in the history of our race, but a group of highly skilled outsiders has dominated the contest right from the very first round. As you can remember, Krev, the Blood Rain, fell to the person who lasted to this very moment and is
I can handle
standing
that.
next to me right now.
The brawny Valkyrie showed a proud smirk, shooting a glance at Asterios. It didn't look like she took anything but pride in the fact that he had managed to best her.
You
The people
got
were
it.
clearly equally thrilled.
Even though he and his friends are
Don't fight
considered
smarter,
outsiders by
fight
many,
harder.
Asterios is also the one known as our savior. In case we have some unaware guests here today, I'll remind everyone that he is the person who reached
You
out to
cannot
our realm
escape the
and to me
wheels of
through his
fate.
powerful summoning magic, generously offering whatever aid he could provide to our arc.
Luck is on my
Thanks to
side.
him and his companions that we could host this instance of the War Games without it being a huge strain on our economy and supplies. If not for their help, even
You
the
got it,
annual
Cap.
War Games might have been delayed, if not cancelled.
Most of the Valkyrias in the audience nodded at each other, while a smaller part showed a great deal of surprise and even shock
I may
at
not
the
be
last
smart,
statement of
but
their
I
leader.
know.
Or perhaps something else, too.
That's right. Asterios, a summoner, has just fought against 4 brave
Turn the tide of
warriors
battle.
and came
Turn your
out
life around.
victorious, earning himself the rightful title of Grand Champion. If
Sure
that is
thing,
not a
Cap.
display of his overwhelming might, power, skills, and techniques, then I do not know what could be. I think you are all aware of his draconic
Light burns
ties,
the brightest
just
in
from
the
the
dark.
last move he pulled off.
Loud clapping filled the Colosseum as the spectators applauded Asterios.
Yeah.
Bryn let them continue the cheers for a while before silencing the crowd with her hand.
Now, as tradition dictates, I will hand over the champion's insignia to the new holder of the honorable title,
Stronger the
alongside
heart,
the
the
arena's
sho-
manager and the strongest warrior.
Skoll hit the platform with the butt of her spear, and a square space
Right.
opened beneath her feet. A smaller pedestal rose from the pit, with a shiny golden item laid down on top of it, resting on a beautiful white cushion. It was a
Life
full
and
face
death
helmet
are
with
but a
intricate
cycle.
carvings on all sides and an exquisite white mohawk on top of it. The helmet resembled those they had seen in the Demon Convent, with some minor
No
differences,
problem.
like the addition of winged patterns and literal wings at around the ear's height. Bryn gestured at Asterios with her eyes, and he gracefully walked to
Fortune
stand in
favors
front
the
of her.
prepared.
Skoll and Krev both lifted the decorative helmet and brought it above his head.
If your blood runs hot,
Bryn
keep your
placed her
head
palm
cool.
on the forehead section, and they all lowered it onto Asterios. After it was fully seated
Solid
on his
plan.
head, they took their hands away, and he turned around to face the crowd, which exploded in cheers again. The golden helmet didn't exactly go well with his black
As long
and
as
red
Sarah's
armor,
safe.
but no one paid attention to that. It was just a symbolic piece of equipment, like a trophy or something, most likely never brought to battle. Asterios waved at the audience for a little while and smiled openly. Though it was impossible for anyone to
Understood.
notice that detail behind the front of the helmet, Miria's eyes sparkled like stars as she applauded them the strongest of his companions, causing him to chuckle. Everyone had a proud expression on their faces.
But this is not the end.
Bryn's unexpected continuation quickly
Go
silenced
ahead.
everyone.
Open your mouth. I'll put an
We
arrow
might
in
have
it.
finished the tournament, selected the new champion. Yet there is still something of extreme importance that I have to
No
announce.
sweat.
I ask everyone here to listen closely to what I have to say.
Some hushed murmurs traveled through the rows in the audience, but the spectators quickly focused on the raised platform.
The war games have not been held right now without a
You
reason.
got it!
Naturally, one of them was our favorable situation and improved living conditions. But that is not all.
Faith will
Besides
never
helping us
betray
with
me.
food and other necessities, Asterios offered to lend us a hand in one more matter. He
Loud
wishes
clear.
to fulfill something that has been nothing more than a dream to us since the Great Cataclysm.
Everyone waited with
Destiny
bated breath at
stirs.
the revelation as Bryn made a long, silent pause to raise the tension even.
Soon, we are going to launch a counter-offensive on the descending spire and reclaim it from the hands of the vile scourge once and for all.
Gasps of shock and disbelief filled the air, possibly even louder than some of the cheers earlier. It wasn't that unexpected. It was quite a sensitive and important topic amongst the Valkyrias, especially those living in Tyr and being part of the armed forces.
Asterios offered to lend us his power to clear out the monsters occupying our sacred site
When your heart starts
and
racing,
return it
slow
to
down
us
and take a
proper
moment.
owners.
Bryn continued, and the crowd went silent.
Tournament was also for him to pair against our best players and gauge the strength of our army, so that he can have an accurate grasp on our might.
She paused once
I will
more
bring
and ran her
justice to
gaze
this
over the
land.
audience.
You've seen what he can do with your own eyes. He clearly doesn't need normal fighters like us to succeed. He is
Here we
a
go.
legendary dragon, capable of annihilating thousands on his own. Yet he understands our desires and gives us a chance to fight for what is ours alongside him.
Aye, aye.
He doesn't want to use us as meat shields either, taking the front alone, supported only by his trusted allies. In his turn, we have only one role, which is to secure
matter
the
how
descending
careful you
spire
are,
right
all it
after
takes
his
is one
squad clears it
mistake.
out for long enough for them to activate the ages and turn this spire into a safe land for us and all the coming generations.
Let's get it done.
The foundations of the arena shook heavily as hundreds, if not thousands, of violent roared in unison. Many Valkyrs and Valkyries stood up and cheered at the top of their lungs, with their wings flapping fiercely behind their backs. Someone must have started to slam their feet on the ground as a deep, even thudding filled the arena after literally everyone joined in on it. The intensity of it was deafening. If the Colosseum was made of anything else than metal, it could have
Not
crumbled to
everyone
pieces
can be
under such an
forgiven.
insane assault.
Now what are you going to do?
Bryn raised her voice and channeled
All it
more
takes is
mana
one
into the
shot.
artifact to speak over the thunderous noise.
Are you going to waste this chance for easy revenge? Are you going to sit at home knowing that an outsider is fighting for our cause? Are you going to
Should've been
send
more
out
careful.
our hero alone to do all the dirty work for us? Are we that kind of people? Who is going with
Coming
me?
right up!
I am.
School shouted loud enough for the artifact to pick it up, joining in on the thudding with her own feet and weapon.
And so am I.
Krev did the same.
Think deeply.
An unexpected mess of fury shook the air as the Valkyrias below them shouted their
People
answers
who run their
in
mouths
complete
die
disarray.
first.
Even though nobody could understand a word, it was clear that they were agreeing. At least the vast majority was, drowning out those who still opposed the idea.
Then go now and spread the news to everyone you meet. Travel back to your arcs and let them know that Tyr is going to fight for our freedom and reclaim what is rightfully ours. Let them know about our hero and
It's a
grand
shame,
champion
spilling
who
blood
will
on
be
such a
leading
nice
the assault. Let them know that he will be passing through all the arcs on the way to Odin and accepting anyone willing to be part of this heroic event with us. Let them know that the
I'll see
time of
through.
liberation is now. Ah!
The audience roared in complete unison once more, and numerous Valkyrias set off from their seats.
Fortune
The
favors the
arena
prepared.
drowned in the noise of flapping wings as the women launched themselves into the sky. Many of them circled the pillar and the platform where Asterios and the others stood before heading further up and disappearing to
It's
the
up to me.
sides. To him and the girls, it looked like they were in the eye of a feathery cyclone for a good 2 minutes. As the
Impossible.
noise gradually calmed down,
So much
Miriam
for the
sneezed
Empire's
loudly
shield.
from a feather landing on top of her nose.
Now let's
Everyone
go stab
chuckled
the
at her
hearts.
as she blushed shyly, giggling alongside them. Bryn showed a wide smile as she looked up into the sky, following the last people leaving through the open roof.
I don't think I remember witnessing a mobilization like this ever before.
Krev laughed openly as she stepped closer to her.
It's said that only a true Sky Queen can move the hearts of so many people.
Skuldul smiled proudly. Bryn's
Give
eyes
Morin a
widened
message
as the
from
faint
me.
trace
If
of
you want to
rosiness
live,
showed up on her
you know
cheeks.
where to find us.
I'm not someone
Otherwise,
worthy of such an
start
honorable
getting
and
sized for a
respected
coffin.
position.
Oh,
Especially
what?
with how many
After
things
all
have
that,
been
we're just gonna let him go?
It was nothing
We can
more
at
than
least send him
cheating
back with some
manipulation.
The
bruises.
two other Valkyrias grinned at each other and laughed together.
We have no idea what kind of person the first Sky Queen really was. The only thing that we can be sure about is the fact that you have always possessed the necessary qualifications of a good leader. We would have been in deep shit if there was no one to oppose Hilda's regime, or the other narrow-minded counselors.
Skuldul said. They are right, Asterios joined in, taking off the decorative helmet. You certainly care for your people.
Sometimes it's better to keep a thing or two to yourself until the other side is ready to hear it.
Greer grinned as she stopped by Ast's side and shot him a glance.
Thank you.
Bryn showed a beautiful smile, nodding her head politely.
I honestly expected this to go much worse. We will have to deal with the nagging of the other counselors after pulling off something like this. But we should have secured the most important thing, which is the cooperation of those who will be most involved. And if we are lucky, the rumors will spread to all the other arcs in no time. There is only one problem.
Selena chuckled softly, capturing everyone's attention.
I don't think the other divisions will now have that many spectators or even contestants after everyone rushed out of the arena like that. Ah,
Bryn's mouth hung open for a good moment until she sighed wryly.
this might get really troublesome. I should have waited for the closing ceremony before calling everyone to action.
Tina giggled quietly.
I don't think it would have had even half as massive a viewership as the finals of the Power Division managed to gather.
Don't worry, Bryn. We'll stand by your side no matter what.
Sylvia showed a soft smile.
Right, Ast?
Without a doubt, Asterios nodded. And the earlier we confront the council, the better. Let's not give them any time to collect their thoughts and come up with some shrewd accusations.
All right. I'm going to count on you, Master. Everyone, let us depart.
Their Valkyrie friend flashed them a smile, and the platform began descending toward the ground. Chapter 18. Good intentions, bad execution.
Yes.
After the elevated stage reached the ground, everyone stepped off it together and followed Bryn toward one of the exit gates leading out of the arena. A few Valkyrias remained in the audience, and a bunch of quieter cheers and applause accompanied Ast's group as they disappeared
My
in the
mistake.
tunnel. Skuldul took the lead from that point, and the Battlegrounds manager guided them through the confusing pathways and corridors with pure confidence. It didn't take them long to reach sizable doors to what Asterios assumed was the place where the council members had spectated the matches of the Power Division. His guess was proven correct, as Skuldul and Krev pushed one metal wing each and revealed a rectangular chamber, with most of the outer wall facing the arena missing. Even from the back near the entrance, the view outside was already incredible. While the people in the room could comfortably sit by a long table and observe fights, those who served them could enjoy the spectacle from
Say,
any point in the
That
small
was
hall.
depends. What
The
sort of
arrival
discount?
of a quite
We go
big
through a
group
lot of
introduced
healing
some
items.
confusion and
Any
startled
chance
the
you could cut me?
Valkyrians, taking
I'm
care
sure
of
I
the
can
food
make
and
it worth your
drinks,
while
especially
somehow,
when it came
being
to
in
two
charge around
specific
here.
people. Krev and Skuldul
Now that you
didn't
mention it,
seem like
there
common
is
visitors
something
in
you
this
could do that
area.
would make my
Though
life
judging
easier.
by the faces
I'm
of
all
the
ears.
council members gathered
So,
inside,
one
their
service
presence
I'd like
might
to
have been
offer people
expected
is
to some
delivering
extent.
orders around camp, rather than
Kara,
making them come
Rosa,
to me.
Ygir, and
That's
Hilda
fine for little
were
things,
seated
but
on a
bulk
bench
orders
in
really
front of
eat
this
into my
set-up
time.
table. Turned to
You
the
want my
newcomers
help with
now.
some deliveries?
A few other council members
Actually,
were either
just one.
spread around the
I
room
have
or
this
sat
huge
by the
order for
dining table
Leonard.
too. They all stood
What
up
is it?
slowly as the servants
Mostly
closed the
herbs.
doors
There's
behind
about
Ast's
7.
group, and their
7?
guests arrived closer.
What's he doing?
You've
Dunno.
made quite the show
Well, if you
back
help me
there,
haul
Bryn.
it, you can ask him
Hilda scoffed
yourself.
with a faint scowl.
My
Sure.
apologies.
Help me.
I got swept up in the moment. I didn't plan to cause almost everyone to leave.
Bryn made a polite bow, though a small smile remained on her soft lips.
pretty sure that most of the people should calm down pretty soon and realize that the war games aren't fully finished. We should take a break for today and continue tomorrow.
What
That's
is
to
it?
give everyone enough time to share the news with their friends and close
Hello,
ones.
Leonard.
You
Porter,
say that you
you're
were
late.
swept up.
It has the
It
fancy.
sounds to
And
me
I'm
like you
incredibly
were in
grateful
full
for your
control
help.
of everything that's
Now then,
happening.
if you'll just
Rhoda
sign the order.
smirked at her
You're
wool.
one short.
That just
Huh?
shows how capable of a leader
I
Bryn
count
is.
7 pouches.
Asterios
I ordered
joined in
8.
with a smile,
Where is the
placing a
silk
hand
weed?
on the Valkyrie's shoulder.
Oh, I had to
She doesn't
cancel
rest
the
on her
aid.
laurels, but
I could
continues
have
to
sworn
work
I asked
hard,
one of the
even through
soldiers to notify
unexpected and
you.
troublesome matters. There's
This
certainly
is
a reason why everyone
unacceptable.
reacted this
I'm
strongly
very
to her
sorry,
words,
sir, but
and
I
it's
just can't
definitely
source
not
that much
just her
silkweed in this
eloquence.
region.
A slight trace of
The
Rose's
silkweed is the
sweet
central
grin
ingredient,
sheathed
you
as
silken-haired
she
little
glanced at
con
him with a
artist.
gentle smile, too.
Whoa.
They exchanged
What
nods,
is
and
this
she returned
silkweed
her
stuff?
attention to
And
the
why are
four
you
women in
insulting
front of them.
Porter's lovely
As
bangs over
Asterio
here?
said,
None of your
I can't
business.
suddenly stop or fall
It's-
behind.
It's
This
a
is not the
poison,
end, but
sir.
just the very beginning.
Okay.
I need
Porter,
to focus
why
even
don't you go
harder
back
if
to
I
your
truly
stall?
want our dream to be
Leonard and I
achieved
need to
without
have a
unnecessary risk. And for that, I will
What is it?
naturally require your help. We need to
All right,
set our
Leonard.
differences
Out
aside
with it.
and join
What's
our
going
efforts
on?
under the same goal.
We are
It
marching on the
seems that you are
capital
going
of
to
the
influence your
Empire.
plans through any
I'm
means
simply
necessary.
preparing.
Rosa commented
To do
with a
what?
quiet sigh.
Taint the water
That's
supply?
kind of funny coming
Don't
from
be
you.
absurd.
Crib chuckled in the back.
Then why do you need so much?
Rosa's
And why are
brows
you
rose
snapping
a
at
little in
Porter?
confusion.
She's right. I don't
I don't
think you
know.
should be the one to
I
talk.
thought I might prepare
Bryn turned
poisoned
her
arrows
gaze
for the
straight
archers or some such
Before
thing.
we actually start
What
working
is this
together on
really
this,
about?
I think we should make a few
You
things
have no
completely
idea the
clear.
battle we're walking
I
into.
don't think I follow.
If we want to survive, let alone win, we need
Did
every
you really
advantage we
think
can
that
get.
no one would notice such an
So
obvious
what you're
thing?
saying is,
Did you think everyone
scared.
would just blame it on bad luck or fate?
I beg your
People are
pardon?
blind.
Bryn
there's no
furrowed her
shame in
brows.
it. But all the
Perhaps
poison in the world
once
won't
could
fix
have been
it.
disregarded as such, but multiple times.
Tell you what,
There are
Stay
bound
here.
to be rumors.
I'll be right back.
And they certainly are going to target me as the power division's overseer. What are you talking about, Bryn?
Ayer looked between her two friends, clearly sensing the tension between them.
I did everything in line with all our traditions, codes, rules, and regulations from the very start. I didn't
Anything
take away
catch your eye?
anyone's right to be opposed to my ideas or plans.
I have a friend
I
who's scared.
accepted the risk that things
Depends.
could potentially backfire, even though I had
Got anything
complete
that
trust in my
boosts
master's
defense?
prowess.
I've got a
There
bracelet
are
that ought
things
to
you
do the
can't
trick.
predict, no matter how well you prepare.
Bryn paused for a moment as she stared the other
I'll take
Valkyrie
it.
down until her own expression
Splendid.
turned sad.
Tell your
And I
friends I hope
certainly
it brings them
wouldn't have
some
expected betrayal.
This isn't
The
one of those
council members
situations
and
where I'm
servants
secretly
still
talking about
present in the
myself.
chamber all
It
looked
really
between
is for a friend.
themselves in mild shock.
Of course it is, darling.
Bryn kept looking at Rosa
Anything
without
catch
moving
your
her
eye?
gaze away, and the other woman tried to hold it down even as her eyes widened slightly.
I don't know. I'm really disappointed in you, Rota.
Ah,
Bryn interrupted her friend firmly, though they could all see the pain in her expression. Rota bit on her lower lip and finally escaped with her eyes to the floor. She didn't say anything, just stood there in silence. Everyone else besides Ast's companions wondered what they were talking about. Even Hilda seemed to look at the two with some kind of curious compassion.
Master,
Bryn glanced back at Asterios and he nodded.
anything catch
A
your
moment
eye?
later, wisps of black shadow pooled between them and the council members, catching everyone's attention. A dark shape rose from it, reaching up to around their chests, and the ominous obstruction slowly receded, revealing a kneeling Valkyria with her hands bound behind her back. That sight evoked some murmurs and quiet gasps from the spectators. Ayer looked at the woman whose face felt utterly blank, and then at Bryn.
what is the meaning of this?
She asked.
Don't worry, it is a lawful detainment. And she is like that due to my master's summons ability.
Bryn replied calmly and stepped closer to the kneeling Valkyria.
Explain yourself. My name is Hruga. I'm a member of the 3rd Reconnaissance Platoon serving under the squad leader Shara.
The woman answered without moving an inch.
I have been ordered by Councillor
You're
Rota
much
to
too
see
kind,
Krev
dear.
the Blood Rain and convince the champion to take part in the war games by luring her in with the promise of fighting a powerful outsider. To avoid additional suspicion, I requested my civilian friend to pass the message in my stead. We have successfully completed our task, and the champion signed up.
The whispers grew louder as Rota's face paled slightly. She still kept her gaze directed to the ground, avoiding eye contact with all the people currently directing their gazes at her.
Don't you think that this is a little bit too much for such a minor thing, Bryn?
Kara asked, with a hesitant expression.
I get that you might be angry at Rota for bringing Krev in, most likely in hopes that your representative would have lost to her. But even if her methods were questionable, it's not like we can fault her too much for inviting someone to participate in the event. This forced interrogation feels a bit excessive.
Bryn didn't answer and only glanced at Asterios once more. Another pool of shadow began forming next to the kneeling Valkyria, and another woman appeared out of it, in the same state as her sister in arms. People seemed to realize
You have
what was
my
going to
attention.
happen next.
Explain yourself.
Bryn requested the same thing of the restrained woman.
My name is Cadiz. I'm an assistant auditor in the Citadel. Our department was tasked to prepare contestant entries and draw the pairs for the matches that would take place during the challenges in the Power Division. I've been ordered by Councillor Rota to assure that Krev the Blood Rain would face the outsider in the first round. And in case she would be bested, everyone from the outsiders group would face our strongest warriors in the following battles.
The second woman confessed. At this point, a plethora of different gazes were directed at Rota. Some of the Valkyrias present in the room showed confusion, contempt, worry, and a clear lack of understanding regarding the reason behind her actions. Hilda didn't even try to hide her disgust as she looked at her fellow counselor.
Well, I agree with your earlier statement, Kara. I don't think I can let this interference into our sacred ceremony go just like that.
You have my
Bryn
attention.
said, turning to the other woman.
Why is a guy like
I'm a
you
member
so
of the
loyal to
council.
the
In
Empire?
such matters, I can't just overlook. What do you
Stoic
think would be the
silence, huh?
people's reaction when
I
they
can
learned of
respect
this?
that.
What about those
Shame
who
you're
signed up for
serving
the
a side.
tournament?
I swore
Especially
an oath.
those who had their
Maybe that
pairings
doesn't
arranged
mean
instead
anything
of
to
draws.
someone like you.
Silence
You're
answered
right.
her, as all the three
I used
other
to be a
members of the
mercenary.
council exchanged
We don't believe
gazes.
in blind
With a
oaths.
serious
Keeps us from
transgression
getting
of
roped
such
into doing
caliber,
things we might
no one
regret.
wanted to defend the culprit.
To be
It could put a
lectured
strain on
honor
their
by
name or even
Not
get
a
them
lecture.
involved in the unfortunate
question.
case.
Do you
Bryn
truly
sighed
believe
heavily
the
and
Emperor?
turned to Rota
no
once
less than the
more.
butchers of
What do you
Holzberg.
have to say in your defense?
Holzberg was a mistake.
I'm
You're talking to
sorry.
someone who tried to
Rosa
stop
replied
it.
quietly,
And
without
yet
raising
you
her
still
gaze.
fight for them.
You are so
I believe
adamant
my
in going
side
out
can
there that
change.
I couldn't think of anything
Can you
to
say the
stop
same
you.
of yours?
I don't think you're
I
aware
see
of how
now
dangerous
why
this
Morin's
operation
envoy
is.
fell for
There are
your
so many
schemes.
unknowns
But
on
I
both
won't be
sides.
swayed by your...
Did you think
Take
that I
some
would
time.
give up after failing
Think
to
it'll-
get the recognition
rather
and trust
die.
of our warriors?
Bryn asked,
You have
slowly
my
walking
attention.
closer.
I think you're mistaken about
I
something.
give you my
The army
thanks.
isn't the core around which my plans are made.
Rota said nothing. Her body shivered lightly as Bryn's hand rested on her shoulder.
I swore to my master that I would lead him to this fire,